Hi there, my name is Bill Starnes and I'm the Senior Financial Advisor and founding member of Mallard Advisors in Hockessin, Delaware. Today I'm going to be talking about building wealth by paying taxes. But I'm going to do more than talk about it. I'm going to prove its value to you using real numbers in real time. Now, most clients don't want to pay taxes at all, let alone sooner rather than later. In fact, it's common wisdom to defer income and taxes as long as possible. And while that may make a lot of sense, especially during the high income years, it's also true that income deferral is the wrong strategy at other times. For many of my wealthy and retired clients, a tax deferral strategy can result in getting hammered with higher taxes down the road at higher tax rates than they would have otherwise paid today. So let me start by talking briefly about how income tax brackets work and what control we have over them. First, there are 7 ordinary income tax brackets as shown here, starting at 10% and rising as high as 39.6%. And really, with a tax bracket smoothing strategy, over time the goal is to avoid realizing income at these brackets and instead accelerating it into these lower brackets. Now let's see how these brackets actually play out with a married client with $1 million of taxable ordinary income. How does that $1 million get taxed? Well, what happens is the first $18,000 gets taxed at a 10% tax rate. Then the next $56,000 gets taxed at 15, and the next at 25, 28, 33, 35, and all the rest and any more beyond that gets taxed at 39.6%. Now, there is a lot of confusion over what tax brackets are and what tax bracket you're in, and that's certainly understandable. Some people think that if they're in the 28% income tax bracket, that all of their income is taxed at 28%. Well, that's not true. Our system is progressive. That means the less taxable income you have, the lower the tax rate you pay. And you can see how looking at taxable income in this way adds a depth that you just can't see on an income tax return. So it's easy to see if this client were to earn an additional dollar of income, that dollar would be taxed. It would be put on top here and taxed at 39.6%. And we do have some control over our taxable income via a variety of tax planning techniques. For example, this client who has $86,000 of taxable income is peaking up into the 25% tax bracket. But let's say if they were to defer 11% of their income into a 401k, boom, they would avoid the 28% completely with that deferral. In other words, they drop back into the 15% tax bracket. And the value of that 401k contribution, it would provide a 25% federal tax savings. How about another example of a retired client who has $57,000 of taxable income and who knows they'll be facing much higher tax rates in the future? Well, they may decide to fill up the rest of the 15% tax bracket by, say, cashing in some U.S. savings bonds and realizing taxable interest income of $17,000. Now they've taken full advantage of the 15% tax rate today. And while we have some control over our taxable income during our working years, it's actually during our retirement years where we have tremendous control over our taxable income, where we can actually decide how much of these different tax brackets we want to consciously fill with taxable income. But income tax planning is not just done on an annual basis. The biggest benefits are realized when tax smoothing evaluates annual or anticipated tax rates over time. So now we can see not only the current year, but all future years for this client. And while there is a lot of work involved in estimating tax brackets over time, it's something we do for all of our wealth management clients. If you're able to look at your tax rates over time this way, you're then able to see the variability of income, which generally occurs between the time of employment here and when IRA distributions and Social Security are in full swing here. And when there is a lot of variability in income, that means there's a lot of opportunity for tax planning and tax savings. To perform tax bracket smoothing, you not only need to know which acceleration and deferral techniques are best used in your particular situation. Even more importantly, you need to know which tax brackets to maximize, as some clients should be maxing out the 15% tax bracket down here, while others should be maximizing, let's say, the 25% tax bracket. It depends. It depends on what your future exposure is going to be. So I want you to think about tax brackets as buckets that you want to consciously fill with income in order to take advantage of low tax rates now so you don't have to face them as severely in the future. Low tax brackets are something you use, not celebrate. And in this example, this financially independent client is able to retire at their age 60 with a small pension, but with plenty of assets in their investment accounts. Therefore, once retired, their income's barely even filling the 10% tax bracket. And then by their age 70, between their Social Security and IRA distributions, they are forever exposed to these higher brackets. So what if you were able to see these coming changes? Well, if you could, you'd make much better decisions today. These low brackets present a limited opportunity, and once this opportunity is gone, you can't get it back. And for this example, I'll assume that this client converts a portion of their IRA to a Roth IRA each year in a specific amount in order to fill these lower brackets. Amazing. Amazing, isn't it? Look at how much taxable income shifts from these higher brackets to these lower ones. So what else will this do? Well, let's take a look. Here we can see the balances of their IRA and how these balances increase over time, and then at their age 70, their IRA distributions begin and continue and grow. Thus, their IRA begins to lose value over time, until at their age 100, they have a little bit over $4 million in future value. Now, how do you think this graph will change when I illustrate a tax bracket smoothing strategy? Well, we should see the value of the IRA go down. We should see a Roth IRA in green bars appear, and we should see the IRA distributions go down since there are no required distributions from a Roth IRA. There we have it. Here are the Roth conversions during those low bracket years, and that starts to create the Roth IRA in green, and we also saw the IRA distributions drop. So let's look at that again. Before, after. Before, after. So again, what I want you to see is how all of the income that's filling these high brackets disappears and moves into these lower brackets by implementing a tax bracket smoothing strategy. Absolutely fascinating. This is tax bracket smoothing at its best. And naturally, this is an example, and the results will vary based upon a variety of factors. Now, if you've stuck with me this far, you may be saying, Bill, this sounds amazing, and the graphs are great, and it may make logical sense, but will doing this really improve my financial security? Does this really increase wealth? In our example here, the answer is a resounding yes, and I will prove it to you right now. So what we're looking at now is the value of this client's total portfolio broken down by their personal, non-retirement investments, and their IRA. There is no Roth IRA yet because this is before implementing tax bracket smoothing. Now you can also see the cumulative total tax liability over this client's life. Now, all of these numbers are in today's dollars. In other words, inflation is being ignored. This way, our results will not favorably skew the effects. I should say the results will not be favorably skewed by the effects of inflation. In other words, the changes we're about to see only result from the value of the strategy and not from increases in inflation. And we can see here at the client's age 100, the total portfolio value is about $5.3 million. In addition, their total cumulative tax liability over this time period is about $3.5 million. So what we're looking at is the results before executing a tax bracket smoothing strategy. Now let's take a look at what this will look like after they've performed a series of partial Roth conversions. Now, what do you think will happen to the ending value of their portfolio? Do you think the cumulative tax liability will decrease? And what will happen to the mix of investments? Let's take a look as I illustrate in my software a series of partial Roth conversions. We can see here that the total wealth increased from $5.2 million to $7.5 million. Not bad for just knowing how much income to realize and in what years. And now a lot of those dollars sit inside a tax-free Roth IRA as opposed to a tax-deferred IRA. And take a look at the red line showing the cumulative tax liability. It's now just over $2.25 million. That's more than $1 million less in total taxes paid over this client's lifetime. Let's look at this again. Before and after. Taxes are going down and the value of the portfolio is going up. So as we can see here, paying taxes now by using a tax bracket smoothing strategy can build wealth. It's become so ingrained to defer income at all costs, defer capital gains, defer IRA distributions. However, when you do multi-year tax bracket planning and you can see the big picture, deferring income is not always the best strategy. Instead, paying taxes now may be the best strategy. I'd like to thank you for taking your valuable time to watch this video in order to learn about how tax bracket smoothing builds wealth. If you'd like to learn more or how these concepts apply to your own situation, feel free to give us a call. Thanks for listening and have a great day.